All right. Hey, y'all. It's Dr. Know-It-All. So I am very, very privileged to have the Angry Astronaut with me today. I forgot to ask you before we started whether you just want to go with the Angry Astronaut or whether we want to use real names.
You can
So-
just call me angry and I'm good with that.
okay. Well, you can call me John because I
My
don't know.
real name is Jordan. That's
There we
fine.
go.
But just call me angry and we're good with that. Everybody does.
Cool. Yeah, or double A. I've sort of taken to calling you double A
That's
online, so
fine
there you
too.
go.
But AA has other connotations. So,
So maybe that's not the
it's
greatest thing in the world. So,
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I like I said, I'm very happy that you are joining us today, and we are going to have a chat about all things space because my channel is kind of Tesla, Elon Musk centric. I'm going to, I guess, focus it a little bit on that, but I
Sure.
don't want to really, I don't want to like lock us in on anything in particular. But the first thing, and something I actually don't know about you, is your background and why you're so interested in, space, etc. I would love to know
Well,
about that.
my fascination with space started when I was as early as I can remember. I was watching the Star Trek animated series that was out in the early 70s. That was my favorite show. I didn't even know that there was a Star Trek with live actors on it until later on. And then that became my favorite. This is well before Star Wars. I was fascinated with that, Space 1999. And my uncle spent most of his professional career at NASA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he worked at the Cape all through the golden age of spaceflight, into the shuttle era, knew all the Apollo astronauts, all that. So I got to see the maiden launch of the Challenger up close and personal when I was
Wow.
12. And it was, yeah, that was an event that changed my life in a big way. So yeah, but it's not my academic background. I'm a historian. That's my major. It's what I was fascinated
Right.
with, and that's oftentimes what guides some of my videos. I like to look at what mistakes and have been made in the past, that have led to problems and disasters and sometimes loss of life, as cautionary tales for what we might be doing now.
Right.
To make sure that we don't do the same thing as was done before. So,
Use the past as a
so yeah,
guide, for
yeah, and I'm
sure. Yeah.
from Colorado Springs, which is a
Oh, okay.
big military town, big aviation town. I went to CU Boulder, which is a big, astronautics school and all that. JPL pulls a lot of their stuff out of CU. So yeah, I mean, there's just so many things in my background that point towards space, and this is what I love.
Cool. I have to admit, I'm probably more or less in the same thing. Not history as an undergrad major, but just always had the passion for space, even though it never ended up being my avocation, I guess. So, or vocation. Sorry, it is an avocation. It is not a vocation. So why did you end up naming your channel the Angry Astronaut as opposed to, I don't know, the Happy Astronaut or something like that?
I knew I had to take a different angle. I mean, there's so many
Okay.
channels out there that were talking about space flight, space science, space policy, whatever. I had to
Right.
take a harsh editorial angle, in my opinion, in order to grab people's attention. Instead of just reporting about everything that's going on and isn't this neat and oh look at the Starliner, oh too bad it had that problem, but I'm sure they'll overcome it. No, it's a piece of garbage, and I mean, Boeing claimed that this vehicle was capable of carrying humans a year and a half ago. At this, I think it's
Right.
that long, maybe longer at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and it wasn't. It was an incredibly dangerous and flawed machine that NASA found 80 corrective actions were required with it, when it was theoretically ready to go.
Right.
What if they hadn't caught this? What if it had been a successful mission the first time just by pure luck, and then they had
Right.
sent human beings up on it afterwards? So yeah, I mean, I don't let these things go by. Instead, I attack them. So,
Cool.
not all the time though. This is not what my channel is exclusively about. It's
Right.
it's
Right.
about it's about topics that people don't talk about too. I get angry about that, like the Lucy mission to the Trojan asteroids, for example. That's just a few months away. Nobody's talking
Right.
about that, and most
That was
people
that was
probably don't even know it
fascinating.
exists. Yeah,
I didn't know it existed, so I learned a ton watching that episode, and I was actually
right.
I'm very happy about that. And I do have to say, this is like, I don't know. I mean, this is just the truth. I wouldn't say it otherwise, but I think you're in my top 3 favorite like YouTube
Thanks.
people. So no, I mean,
Thanks.
so it's a super big honor to be able to talk to you about this. And I
Jeez,
do like the
I didn't
angle.
think anybody would ever say anything like that.
No, no. And the funny thing is, I've been following you since, gosh, how long have you been online? It hasn't been all that long, unless I
Just a
missed
year
the
and a
very
half.
beginning.
Year and a half.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I probably found you about a year ago, and you know, at the beginning it was very technically challenged and everything. And we were just talking about that before we went online. That it is not easy to do all of the other stuff, right? You can be a total expert in the area, but then you have to do all the production elements too, and that's really challenging. So, but you know, but it was sort of endearing because you know you're working on getting all the equipment set up and working right. But you know, we follow along. But like I said, I learn a ton. And you know, you say angry, but most of the time I think enthusiastic, and you get
Yeah.
angry about other people not being at that level. I guess that if that's the way you want to put it. So.
Or just not being competent, you know,
Yeah.
and
I
you know,
knew we were going to
space
touch
flight.
on Boeing real fast, so
Yeah.
it was very interesting that we got
Yeah, I
there.
mean, you know, just and space flight and NASA suffering as a result. I mean, that's just
Right,
unacceptable and inexcusable.
right.
It's happened so many times in the history of space flight, and it's got to stop.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of. I think. Well, I mean, we sort of grew up. I'm older than you by a few years, but we sort of grew up in that same time period where there was just like a sort of a death that happened. I mean, even with the space shuttle coming along, it was just not what it was supposed to be, and it
No.
just sort of felt like the at least human level space travel was kind of dying off. And it's really only been in the last few years, I think, especially with SpaceX, but with a bunch of other companies coming online now, that it started to feel like, wow, the possibility that we dreamed about as children is now actually potentially going to come true again. And I think that's just fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
SpaceX really rekindled everything in people's
right.
fascination. I'd say, of course, that big moment that everybody remembers is the Tesla Roadster headed to Mars, although it
Right.
didn't. It's like it
Right.
flying into the asteroid belt or something, and actually
Right.
came to a close encounter with Earth again not that long ago. So yeah, that grabbed everybody's attention, you know.
Right.
So
But, you know,
everybody
but
wanted to
before
be
that,
Starman, kind of.
exactly. But even before that, for people who are following, you know, just the grasshopper launches and all of the attempts to actually land a booster, which it did seem like science fiction until they did it. You know, it was like, oh yeah, that's the stuff that was in the 1950s stories and Werner von Braun would talk. In fact, the crazy thing is that I feel like Starship is what Werner, you know, when you look back at that old Disney special that he did in, like, I think it was 57, when he had, you know, the big stainless steel rocket ship. And it's like,
Yeah.
wait a second, did they just like steal that from him or something all
It
these
looks
years
like
later?
1930s Buck Rogers to me. It
Yeah,
goes
yeah,
way
it's
back
crazy.
to yeah ancient times when it comes to that
Right.
sort of thing. So yeah,
So
very
it's
cool.
very, very cool. Well, actually, speaking of that, I want to start with one of your latest videos. I don't remember if it's the exact last one you've done or close to it, but the whole thing about SpaceX not being able to launch their orbital flight this year, or you're going to eat part of a Boeing hat, which I think is
Yeah.
good for you for putting it on the line, man, because I would not want to eat any part of anything Boeing. So,
All I did was copy Peter back. I mean, he did
right.
that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I was doing really. But I mean, that is how confidently I feel about it. I think that Elon Musk cares about the safety of the public. And you can't slap together the most powerful rocket in human history in 7 months that's just in pieces right now. And I don't even know if all the pieces have been delivered. Throw 28 engines onto it, throw in
Right.
3,400 tons of fuel, and hit the button. You know, it's just, I don't think that that's doable or responsible. Saturn V wasn't developed that quickly, and
Right.
Saturn V is just over half as powerful as the Super Heavy. I mean, 16 million pounds of thrust is insane.
Right.
And that's what we're looking at. You know, we're looking at a rocket that can just gobble up huge amounts of fuel per second and, you know, not explode in the process. You know, that takes some serious engineering. This isn't just scaling up a Falcon 9. It's totally different engines. It's totally different materials. It's totally different everything. So
Right.
yeah, it's just not going to be easy. I don't care what anybody says. It's not going to be easy. I don't know
Yeah.
if he could prove me wrong and launch it before the end of the year, and if it goes up safely, I'll be delighted. I'm going to be there personally, so I sure
Right.
hope it goes up safely. But at the same time, if that happens, then yeah, I'd be very delighted to eat part of a Boeing out or whatever. To show. Of course, it needs to. In my video, I also committed to it landing successfully.
Right.
So, and that I
And I think you said
really
it's got to
doubt.
go around at least once, all the way
Yeah,
around. So,
well, I'd be okay even if it had only orbited it less than once and landed
right.
successfully. That would be all right. I'd regard that as being sufficient. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't see it landing definitely. But I it's just not ready. I mean, it takes a
Right.
lot to build something like that and make sure that it doesn't blow up on the pad, as the Soviets discovered with the N1. I keep going back to that, but it's a historical cautionary tale. They rushed that rocket to completion, and it caused untold damage. And it's very fortunate that nobody was killed. Of course, who knows? The Soviets might have covered up the fact that people were
That's
killed
true.
by it. It certainly could have
Right.
happened. So.
And beyond that, I mean, the damage. So what I started thinking about was the damage to SpaceX's reputation as well.
Mhm.
So, and I think that happened with the Soviets too, right? Is that they tried to launch the N1 and they wanted a big ta-da that we have something as powerful as the Saturn V. And for those who don't know, the N1 had, how many, 20 something engines on the
It was
bottom
over 30,
stage.
actually.
Oh, it was over 30. Okay.
Yeah,
So, I
I
mean, it's
forget.
on
It was
the order.
32, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it's on the order of how many that are supposed to get slapped on the bottom of,
Hmm.
the Super Heavy. So, this is something that's never, ever been flown successfully. No one has ever launched something with that many large rocket engines on the bottom of it.
Correct.
So, so SpaceX is looking to do something that has no historical precedent ever. Now,
Correct.
they've done a lot of things that have no historical precedent, and
Right.
good for them. But it does make you wonder about Elon time because, we also saw when was the Starship presentation? Fall of 2019, when they had Starship, what was that, version 1 or Mark 1 before the
Mhm.
serial numbers. And, he was like, oh, by the end of the year or something, we'll have it flying. And it took a
He said
long
that this
time.
will go to 20 kilometers in 1 to 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took 18. So,
Right.
I mean, that should be an indication to everybody that he's just, overly optimistic about these things.
Right.
And, the difference is, to say, okay, he has done other things, obviously, that have never been done before. The difference is he hasn't done anything that has the explosive potential of a tactical nuclear bomb. Now, I'm not talking Hiroshima level, but when
Right.
N1 exploded, it was close to 1 kiloton equivalent, and it shattered windows as far away as 40 kilometers from the launch pad in South Padre Island is only 10. And
Yeah.
debris from N1. So if N1 blew up at the Boca Chica launch pad, parts of it would end up on South Padre Island. That's something that really should give somebody pause before you hit the
Right.
switch on a mega rocket.
Right.
So you just can't
The
afford a failure.
Yeah, the Mexican border is even closer than that, of course, because they're
Mhm.
basically right on it. And
Yeah.
that's an international incident. If you start sending shrapnel and kill some cows or, God forbid, some people in Mexico, then that's,
Correct.
it's really bad to kill U.S. citizens. It's even worse to kill citizens of another country. So,
Yeah.
oops.
Any disaster that shatters every window on South Padre, or at least every window facing Starship, that does that, and Elon is done for a long time. He'll be
Right,
facing a
exactly.
lot of lawsuits and a lot of government accountability.
Right,
And he knows that. He's not stupid. He
right,
knows that. And so he's not going to push the button on this thing until he's pretty sure that it's going to take off safely. And
right,
can you do that in the 7 months? I say no. I say
right.
sometime next year at the earliest.
Yeah. Um, there is something to say for an all-up test, but I kind of can't believe they're not going to try to hop the Super Heavy on its own too. It seems like they don't want to. It seems like they just want to put the Starship on top of it and go for it. But
Yeah.
you don't have to fuel it up as much for one thing. You can just put a little teeny bit of fuel in the bottom of it, and that seems like an awful lot. And also, you don't have the stress loads of having a. Oops! I hope I haven't frozen here.
Yes, you have
Okay, sorry.
actually. I just
Let me
didn't
see.
want to interrupt you.
Yeah. Let me kill my camera and start it up again, and hopefully we will have good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
IT, it's such a fun thing.
I know. Well, actually, I've got a new M1 laptop, and oh darn
Ooh,
it, that
nice.
sucks. Yeah, but the problem is, for some reason, it really doesn't like Zoom, and sometimes it goes out, and I actually have to restart the computer in order to make my video come back on.
Oh
So
dear.
I may be just a face for the rest of the time. We will see. So yeah, it
Well,
doesn't seem to want to bring me back. So
however you
sorry
want to
about
work,
that.
it's fine by me.
No, it's all good. So we'll keep talking. You're the interesting party to this
Oh,
anyway.
jeez, hard to believe that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So
That's
as long
fine.
as if you
Thank you.
suddenly can't hear me, then let me know. Um,
Okay.
but I think about the anyway. As I was saying, the super heavy booster. It seems like it would make an awful lot of sense to do some 10K hops with that as well.
Hmm.
I mean that seems like a much more reasonable option than attempting to fly it just with the Starship on top, just because of the stresses. Even if the
Hmm.
Starship was empty and it was just being thrown up there as payload on top, you still got way more stress on the entire
Yeah.
frame. Now, I have heard, and I haven't looked into this myself, so I can't tell you whether this is real or not, but somebody was kind of poo-pooing your tactical nuclear level explosion by saying, oh, this is methane. Methane doesn't explode nearly as much as like RP1 or something like that would explode. I don't know if that's true. It certainly seems like under the right conditions you could still get. I mean, I've watched those things crash, and when
Yeah.
SN, 8, 9, 10, whatever, they blew up pretty heftily.
Yeah. This is
So,
all I've got to say to that. Prove it. Take 3,400 tons of liquid oxygen and liquid methane, put 1,200 tons more on top of it, and go ahead and have it, explode, and see how much of it is a conflagration and how much of it is an explosion. Because given how far SN11 hurled massive pieces of stainless steel, and I have seen this with my own eyes. They went hundreds of meters away from the launch pad, and SN11 was running off of fumes at that point. It had very
right.
little fuel left. So if we're talking, if it's only 150 to 200 meters clear of the pad and then goes up, yeah, go ahead and show me how that's not going to do anything.
In all honesty,
I don't buy
it
it.
would be it would be better if it blew up on the pad, because then you've got at least everything is a little bit more contained towards the ground. If it
Right.
gets
It
up a
wouldn't
couple
be an
hundred
air
meters and
burst.
explodes, yeah, if it gets up a
Yeah.
couple hundred meters, we got big problems. By the way, from Discord, I'm getting a super chat, $5 from Foom, and a super chat from Cynic and Chief. So thank you guys so much.
All
And
right,
of course, if you
Foo.
have, yeah,
He's
Foom.
a
Oh, is he
supporter
one
of
of
mine
yours?
as well.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
You can't see my
great guy.
thumbs up, but there you go. Anyway, if you have questions, definitely post them. I'm not watching the live chat right now, but the people on Discord are watching it, so they're going to hopefully collate 5 or 6 interesting questions for us to answer after we have our little chat. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, so yeah, so I definitely worry about that too, and of course, we're in the process of buying and selling a house right now, which is complete chaos. But assuming that and of course, I think you're right. I think it's going to be months and months before they're ready to go orbital. But I'm going to be down there, if at all possible, at South Padre to watch this launch with you, because
Yeah.
it's going to be historic, whatever happens. And maybe I'll hide behind a big rock or something. I don't
Oh,
know.
I've got my spot picked out. So yeah, I'll show you
Yeah,
where to hide if there's a
right.
big flash. So
Is
yeah,
it is it over towards the western? It's over towards like kind of where not the marina, but where the trailer park is. I think
yeah.
there's a lot of rocks there.
It's
Yeah,
the seawall. The seawall is the perfect
exactly.
place. It's pretty much going to be like a World War I trench. So if you flatten yourself against the rocks, the shock wave will roll over you, and any
Right,
fragments would not hit you if you're directly behind the rocks. My
right,
concern is that a lot of other spectators are not going to have the sense. They're going to be, hypnotized by the flash, and then,
right, right.
and so
Yeah,
like I say, I don't, just to be clear, I want to be 100% clear. I don't think that this is going to happen. I think that Elon is going to take all the precautionary measures he has to make sure that something like this doesn't happen, even if it means going into 2022. I don't think he's going to, make this thing explode
okay,
with his impatience.
right.
I just, he's got more sense than that, and he knows what's at stake. So he's
Yeah,
playing with a giant bomb here. So yeah, I don't think it's
and
going to happen.
also, he has a team of people as well, of course, and so I
Mhm.
would hope that they would also say, "Yo, not a good idea, buddy."
Right.
So,
Including Gwen Shotwell. So,
right. Who has anyway? All right, so cool. I think you told me that I wasn't going to like that episode, and I was like, no, this is a really good episode. I think it's very worthy
I'm
of
glad you
talking
liked it.
about. Yeah. And if you haven't seen it, folks, I've got the link in the description to the Angry Astronauts channel, and you should definitely go there, and you should definitely subscribe, and you should
Thank
definitely
you.
watch that episode and the Lucy one. That was fascinating. I just don't know how I had missed that entire thing, but it's a super cool trip to the Trojan asteroids around Jupiter. So really interesting stuff.
Thanks.
So
Thank you very
yeah.
much.
Okay, so let's think about longer term for a second. What about SpaceX's vision? Do you agree with their vision? Like, I mean, it seems like the moon is actually something that's been put on them by the U.S. government, but
Yes.
specifically Mars. And what do you think about the timing of the vision? Like, first of all, do you agree with their vision of going to Mars and setting up an eventual second colony or something, Earth 2.0? And second of all, what do you think this is going to happen in any of our lifetimes? That's a viable question, I think.
The answer is yes to both questions.
Okay.
I
All right.
100% believe in what we're trying to accomplish. We need to become a multiplanetary species as rapidly as possible. The human civilization could be wiped out tomorrow if
Sure.
Putin decides to try to launch a first strike, for example, or tensions increase with China and things go nuclear and then it spreads. There are
Right.
many scenarios that could end the human race. And so we need to spread out to other planets as soon as possible before
Okay.
our technology outraces our wisdom and we destroy ourselves.
Right.
Plus the other things that could
Or
happen.
a lovely asteroid decides to come in from behind the sun and loop around to where we are.
Or a
So
super volcano. There's all kinds of
yeah.
things that could
Right.
really create havoc with our civilization and possibly lead
Right.
to our extinction. So yeah, I think that
Okay.
yeah, I'm definitely in favor of that, and I think it'll happen in our lifetimes. It ain't going to happen as fast as Elon says, but I think
Right.
first mission maybe by 2030 or slightly before. I think that that's entirely possible. Yeah, given how fast he's
Okay.
pushing.
Yeah, in 2000. So you're thinking first landing of humans on Mars around 2030.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I have to say I'm slightly more optimistic. I'm thinking like 2028, but but it's
it could
around the
be.
same time frame. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
But of course, there's a really big difference between landing a half dozen people on Mars for 6 months or something and a permanent colony, which is a whole different matter. And that's of course what the Starship is all about.
Right.
Is that we're supposed to be able to launch these things in mass, basically. A fleet of these things. If there's any little green men on Mars, they're going to be like, "What the hell? What do you?" It'll be like
Right.
War of the
Right.
Worlds backwards.
Well, all it takes, I mean, technically, to establish a second human presence that's going to survive from a genetic diversity standpoint is about
Right.
500 people. It actually only takes about 150 to 200. So,
Really?
you don't need a million people in order to ensure the survival of the species. But of course, the
Right.
closer you get to that figure, the better. And Mars is a planet that's more than capable of supporting us. We can't breathe the air, but we can make it. It's got so
Right.
much water on it that it could cover the entire surface of the planet with 1 to 2 meters of water. So it's got an
Yeah.
incredible amount of water, and you can do all kinds of things with water. Obviously, rocket fuel, oxygen, drink it. All kinds of things you can do with it. So,
Right.
and that's just one of a million examples of things that Mars has to offer that would make survival there a lot easier than, for example, surviving on the moon,
Right.
or surviving even in the clouds of Venus, which a lot of people have suggested. Neat idea. The one problem is that there's virtually no water on Venus
Right.
or in its atmosphere.
Right.
That's a big barrier to colonization. So unless we discover something, in the future that there's water in some other form that we just haven't found, but so far,
Yeah.
so yeah, I
And
believe in it. I
also,
think it's a good idea.
I'm thinking back to the episode you did on Jeff Bezos saying that it was harder to live on Mars than on Everest, and I feel like you did a pretty good job of arguing against that, saying that it's a very different environment. You know, you're not on the peak of a mountain or something
Yeah.
balancing. Basically, it's a whole different thing where you've got an entire landscape, and obviously no one is saying this is going to be easy, but it's also
No, it's going
not.
to be very hard.
Yeah, it's not microgravity, and that is helpful for human beings because honestly, we don't even know if we can conceive in microgravity at this point.
Yeah.
So,
I
which
mean,
would be a
there's
problem for the
pretty
future of
good
civilization.
there's pretty good reason to believe that one-third gravity is not going to keep us from being able to do that, especially with our technology. However,
Right.
it will prevent us, any children born on Mars, from ever returning to Earth. Unless we
Yes.
develop some kind of new technology, they will be barred from that. But at the same time, they're going to have the rest of the solar system to choose from.
Right.
Titan, all of the moons of the Jovian worlds have gravity that's lower than Mars. They'd be very easy to go to, and it would take a lot less effort, a lot less rocket fuel, a lot less delta V, all of that in order to get from Mars to the asteroid belt and the Jovian worlds than it would from Earth. It would be way easier.
Right.
So, Martians may end up being the explorers of the solar system, and those who stay behind on Earth just, stay behind.
Right.
Um,
And honestly, there's a kind of a selection of that too, right? Because the people who are going to go to Mars and originally, of course, are going to be exactly those with the exploring spirit, the ones
yes.
who are like, I'm going to get out of here and try this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the only
You know.
ones. I mean, when I
Yeah.
describe my motivations, my dream, and I don't think it'll happen, but my dream is to end my life on another world in whatever way that would
Wow.
happen. But of course, I'd like to die of old age. But I
Right.
can't imagine standing at the base of cliffs that tower above me almost as high as Everest is tall. That's
Right.
5 times the depth of the Grand Canyon. So,
Right.
and that's a commonplace thing in the Valles Marineris. It's all over the place. There are cliffs
Right.
that high, and to be able to see something like that, a sight that you simply can't get on Earth, and Mars has one of those after another. I could spend my entire life exploring the Valles Marineris. It would be an amazing experience. And people talk about
Yeah.
radiation. Well, that's overblown too. I've got videos about that. There's a
Yeah.
lot of habitats that NASA has had designed and competitive designs that shield against radiation. And yeah, for the time that you're out in it, obviously. But the radiation, you'd have to be exposed for 8 to 9 cumulative years of your life on the surface of Mars, assuming you didn't get
Right.
hit by a solar storm,
Right.
before you would develop about a 5% chance of developing cancer. It's not like standing right next to a nuclear reactor in meltdown or anything like that. The whole
Right.
thing is
Right.
overblown. And I've got the maps, the curiosity readings to prove it. It's just
Yeah.
overblown.
So, and and I honestly think that for adult humans traveling there, in my mind, I think you're absolutely right. The interesting ethical concern would be like if you start having babies there, because of course little infants are much more susceptible to radiation. So you would probably have to take significant steps to make sure they were okay.
Yeah.
But by the time we're doing that, we're going to have some sort of colony there, and they'll either be living in volcano tubes or in those habitats that you looked at, the NASA ones, with the water jacket that goes around them. That is, that's pretty darn good protection.
Yeah.
So
There are
yeah,
lots
so
of designs that provide almost totally comprehensive protection against radiation.
right,
You wouldn't have to live in a lava tube, although maybe that's the best way to do it, is to have the
yeah,
children, the nursery below ground where they'd be
right,
completely protected. Yeah, I totally think that children, as they're in their developmental years, need to be shielded from that. But as time goes on, then they start to explore bit by bit. And as our technology
yeah,
improves, I think that treatment for radiation, things like there's a vest that's being tested on
right,
Artemis 1 that provides very good resistance against radiation, designed by the Israelis, resistance against radiation for your major organs, which which is where you're most likely to develop cancer, except in your brain, of course. But
Right.
I think you could probably do a helmet that would work for that too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're way more intelligent than people are giving us credit for. They keep
Right.
talking about how impossible this is. You know how many times geniuses have been told that, and then have been proven wrong. I naysayers really piss me off. And yeah, sometimes I may
Yeah.
seem like a naysayer myself, saying that 7 months is impossible for Starship, but
Right.
I believe Starship is doable, and I believe Elon's long-term vision is doable. So I may be a
Right.
naysayer on a couple things, but not much.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a different thing than being a naysayer to say like you can't do this ever than to say like, well, this isn't going to happen on Elon's timeline, which Elon is notorious for having a timeline.
Yes,
He gets
very.
there, he does get there, but it just takes a lot longer than what he thinks is going to happen. So,
Yeah.
but his enthusiasm is very catching, and so I think that's
Mhm.
good. The people that work for him know that they're going to get there eventually. So,
Yeah, he works
uh,
himself
yeah,
and his people equally
yeah,
hard in order to achieve goals as rapidly as possible. I respect that. Just as long as
right,
he doesn't push it to the point to where he's not being safe anymore. And
exactly,
and like I said, I mean, I compare him to Howard Hughes all the time. And Howard Hughes
right,
accomplished a lot of amazing things before he cracked. And I
right,
really hope that that is not what's going on here. I don't
yeah,
think so. I really don't think so. But genius and madness is a fine line, and sometimes that can be
yeah,
crossed. So who knows? I don't know the guy personally, so
right.
you never know what's going on in his head. Um,
One
so
hopes.
I don't
Well,
know.
one also hopes just that in today's world, with a little bit better social view of that sort of mental difficulty.
Hmm.
I think one of the problems, if Howard Hughes was around today, I think he would have been taken care of better. Is I
Oh
guess what
yeah,
I'm saying. So
much better
yeah.
psychiatric care. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
definitely.
So, and I'm not saying that Elon is in need of that or anything, but he is, he's definitely. You think about people like Einstein and Howard Hughes and I guess Steve Jobs to some extent. There's a lot of people who are very intelligent, but also kind of ride that line
Yes.
of potentially being a little self-destructive. So, anyway,
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about the competition. I'm curious, is the competition coming for SpaceX? And if so, who? And given the fact that Virgin Galactic is doing a launch sometime today,
They
or
already did
maybe,
it.
oh, they already
They
did
it
it.
was
Geez,
it
did I
was
miss
it
it?
was a fantastic success.
Oh, fantastic! But they did not live stream it. So
No, they didn't.
okay.
NASA spaceflight was able to, they had somebody with a camera there who
Oh,
filmed them take off and then filmed it at extremely high altitude. It still looked awesome. It makes me want to go there and film one too. It's an amazing experience to see that. So yeah, it was a complete success. And to those who say that this is just a toy for millionaires, it isn't. NASA had a number of experiments on this very flight, and NASA has already signed a contract.
super.
Yeah, signed a contract with Sir Richard in order to do future microgravity experiments and also basic astronaut training on his ships. Because, yeah, it's only a few minutes in microgravity, but it ain't easy to get a microgravity experience otherwise. And if you can do
Right.
it for a couple $100,000 as opposed to the many millions that it takes to send
Right.
somebody into orbit, it's not a bad idea. So yeah, NASA has already engaged Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin, for that matter, to do similar things with these.
Excellent.
So yeah, they go beyond space tourism, definitely.
No, and it's super exciting. I like I said, I think SpaceX kind of rekindled. Well, I have to say I got to give Virgin a little bit of credit that they were actually the first ones that rekindled
Yes.
it in my mind in the early 2000s. And then
Yes.
they had those unfortunate accidents that really put them
Hmm.
back on their heels, and SpaceX kind of took over. But it really was, and what was it before Virgin? Because before Richard Branson got it, it was
It was Burt Rutan and
yeah, Bert
Skip
Rutan. Yeah,
Pilots. Yeah.
yeah,
When they won the X Prize with Spaceship One,
right,
which was a magnificent achievement at the time. It made me so excited, and yeah, that dropped off the face of the earth after they had that crash and the death of one of
right,
the pilots. It was pilot error that did it, but at the same time, the FAA said that there should have been precautionary equipment in place to prevent
Correct.
him from making that mistake. So it was partially Virgin Galactic's fault. I think that hit Richard Branson right to the core. I think that
Right.
he was like, "My God, I've killed somebody with my idea."
Yes. Yes.
I can't imagine how that made him feel.
Right.
So, he's been going it slow and careful, and I don't blame him. I think that's a very good idea when you're talking about human lives. So,
Absolutely.
but it's what happened today is exciting, and they're looking at several more
Absolutely.
test flights in the next 30 to 60 days before they go commercial. They are going, Blue Origin essentially created the sense of urgency by saying we're going, and
Right.
some knucklehead is bidding $3 million or something to be the first person on that. I wish I had that kind of money to waste on a 10-minute
Right.
experience. Dear
I know,
God.
I know.
But
I
I
have to
mean,
say that I bid a few $100s. I knew I would be outbid instantly, but
yeah, well, for
I
a
put
few
in
hundred
something.
bucks, sure, I
Yeah,
guess. Although I don't know,
exactly.
my principals probably wouldn't let me go even if it was free. To be honest, all the things I've said about Blue Origin, I'm pretty certain I wouldn't take anything from it.
So,
I've just been.
do you think that Virgin Galactic or Blue Origin is going to get the first tourist into space
I
between the
think
two of them?
Blue Origin will because they've got a simpler system. Virgin
Yes.
Galactic has a lot of complexity to it.
Right.
I hate to say that, but I mean, Blue Origin could have sent humans into space last year.
Oh, yeah.
They,
Yeah, yeah.
this thing has been tested over and over and over and over again, and it's
Right.
very solid. Although I
Yeah.
have to admit, I think that first passenger is going to be in for a bit of a shock during the landing, because the landing looks very hard. As
Yes.
any Russian cosmonaut or anybody who's written on the Soyuz will tell you, splashing down on solid ground is not fun. It's something that
Right.
sends something shooting straight up your spine. So I don't know. Having watched how that thing lands, I can't imagine that that's going to be a lot of fun for whoever's on board. And then
Right.
that last part of it, but we'll see. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, in a weird way, it actually, because the rocket is able to, the booster is able to hover, it actually looks like that would be a much more comfortable way to land. Just
Hmm.
come down, hover a little bit, and
Yeah,
settle.
that
So,
that would make sense.
but yeah, but also, you got to understand that they're doing this entirely for safety. So, what about the new Glenn rocket? Is that like, what the hell is up with that?
The development on that needs to stop. In my opinion,
Oh,
Blue Origin needs to come under the purview of ULA. ULA
interesting.
needs to gobble up Blue Origin and take control, because I'm about to release a video today about how
Oh,
Blue Origin is in a position to destroy the future of Vulcan Centaur, and it put
wow.
ULA in a deep trouble. And so I really think ULA and their leadership needs to, I don't think they will, but I think that that's what needs to
Right.
happen. I don't think New Glenn represents anything that we need. I think that the Vulcan Centaur and Starship and Falcon Heavy with a bigger fairing, that can do everything that needs to be done at this point. By the time New Glenn is out, all of the customers that have a need for that sort of thing are going to kind of be spoken for.
Right. That does
Military
make
and all
sense.
that.
Yeah.
I think that he just took too long with the doggone thing,
Right.
and still not even close to completion. And then he
Well,
throws out this excuse, "Oh, I didn't get any military money, so it's going to
right.
be another 2 years." Really, Jeff? Yeah, I know you're broke. I know you're really broke, so you can't throw a few extra $1 billion at this thing
Right.
to make it go. Yeah, I feel
It,
so
it
much
is.
sympathy for him.
I know. It really is hard to feel sympathy for one of the wealthiest people in the world crying that they didn't get a government
Yeah,
grant.
they didn't get
So,
government money. There's so many
yeah.
people in this country who need government money, not
Right.
him.
Yeah. And that's interesting. I hadn't thought about ULA gobbling them up, but that would be interesting. They Blue Origin is it's definitely its own beast. It's they just seem, what's their logo? Step by step, ferociously.
Yes, yes.
It seems far too accurate. They perhaps needed to throw caution to the wind just a little bit more and go faster, but they haven't, and they're kind of committed to that path now. So
Well, it's gonna sabotage them completely. And
Right.
by the way, this whole thing with the HLS and the Senate trying to force
Yes.
NASA to take a second lander, given how the initial NASA report rated the landers, it looks like that Blue Origin would be number two, which would be a massive mistake.
Right. Right.
The Blue Origin lander requires a new propulsion system, which has been 3 years in development at Blue Origin, this new engine, and 3 years for
Wow.
them is about 3 months for your average
Right.
rocket company, and about
Right.
3 milliseconds for SpaceX. So, they're just never going to get it done.
Right. Right. Yeah. I really do feel bad for Dianetics because I
Excuse me, I'm
swear I think.
sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Excuse me. I apologize.
That's all right.
I occasionally get twitches in my leg. It's very, very.
Oh.
It's an easy thing for me to just
Walk
ignore it
away.
when I'm
Yeah.
recording a video.
Right.
Uh,
I'll just walk
but
around. It's fine.
Yeah,
We're all
sorry
good.
about that. I really do
It's absolutely fine.
apologize. It's mind-bogglingly painful.
Oh, is it like a cramp or?
Yeah, just a muscle
Yeah.
cramp that happens in
Right.
my lower legs occasionally. I'm all right
Oh
now,
gosh.
but oh
All right.
God,
Sorry
yeah,
about
you
that.
just,
Isn't
hey,
that
your
isn't that one
fault.
of the curses? It's one of those curses of getting older is that you get these weird
Yes.
things like cramps and stuff.
Oh yeah, happens a lot.
my my parents, who are obviously much older than I am, are they always say, "Man, getting old is not for wimps."
No,
It's
no,
like
a
gotta be
lot of
tough.
discomfort involved.
Yep, yep. So you've talked a little bit about Boeing at the beginning, but we've got ULA, we've got Blue Origin, we've got Rocket Lab, we've got Virgin, we've got Boeing, etc. We've got a lot of competitors out there. What do you think should happen to the landscape of the space industry? Should it go completely private? Should the government, I'm just curious what you think in terms of like, if you could wave a magic wand and make the space industry landscape into what you wanted.
Yeah. Well, NASA's always going to have something to do.
Yeah.
NASA is going to have scientific objectives that don't have any money involved in it.
Right.
So the private industry is not going to be interested in, exploring the Trojan asteroids, for example. Although there definitely is some practical value to going there, but it's very long term, and I don't see a lot of private companies
Right.
going for that. So yeah, there's always going to be a place for NASA. If I could wave a wand, I would, have Boeing get instantly new leadership, and
Right.
get rid of all the morons who've been causing the problems for them, not only in space flight but in aviation as well. And I'd have Blue Origin come under the purview of ULA because I think Torrey Bruno is a good leader, and Jeff is not.
Yeah.
At least in terms of space flight. I mean, the guy's obviously been successful with Amazon, but he's just it should not be doing anything with space flight. He just doesn't get it,
Right.
and he doesn't have any focus on it. He doesn't have a sense of urgency. So yeah, but having an extremely competitive industry is what I want. I don't want SpaceX, for example, dominating the whole
Right.
thing. I really
Right.
don't. And one company dominating it leads to stagnation. I do think that things will remain competitive even when Starship does come out, because I don't think it's going to be as simple to launch Starship one day after
Yes.
another as they're saying, nor
Right.
do I think it's going to be as cheap, because billions have gone into the development of this thing. And,
Yeah.
SpaceX is never going to get that money back if they're just charging $2 million a launch. I
Right.
think they're going to, they can charge $100 million a launch and still make it really cost effective if you're taking 100 tons to low Earth orbit.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
don't think they're going to go with $2 million a launch at all, except maybe for themselves. But that would be about
That's
it.
true. For Starlink, they can throw up a whole
Yeah.
bunch of Starlink satellites for.
Yes.
But yeah. So I mean, I personally very much agree with you. I'm always somebody who feels like in any industry, when somebody takes over too much, the industry as a whole goes downhill. And I feel like to some extent that did happen. I think that's one of the major problems that happened with the space like industry in the 80s and 90s and even into the 2000s was that it became dominated by too few players, and they just kind of sat on their hands and said, please
Yes.
keep feeding us money, government. And we'll
Yes.
keep charging a $500 million a launch or whatever we feel like charging and not developing anything new. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it would be nice if it did not stagnate again.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see it happening. There's way too much competition out there now. Rocket Lab
Right.
developing the Neutron, which was a really good move on the part of Peter Beck,
Absolutely.
because he realized that the market that he was in was going to get super competitive. And so he's moving
Right.
into heavier lift, the world now, and human rating. I mean, for the Neutron, he
Yeah.
wants to get human
Yeah.
rated. So that's amazing.
That's cool. Right.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that, and it's just one of tons of exciting things.
Exactly.
Virgin Galactic looking at suborbital travel, not just going up and coming
Right.
down, but instead going, from LA to London in an hour and a half, that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So yeah,
And obviously at this point that would be a for the wealthy people kind of thing. But what a
right.
cool trip to take! You get to go to
Mhm.
London and get to say you're an astronaut because you've been into space.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
And there are actually people whose time is worth so much money, like Jeff Bezos, for
Yeah.
example. I don't know how many
Right.
thousands or tens of thousands of dollars he makes a second or something. But if you can save the time that it takes, for 90 minutes to get you to London
Right.
as opposed to 8 hours, that actually saved your company a lot more than the cost of the flight. So for really rich, CEOs and things, it actually would be cost effective to use that kind of transportation.
Right.
So that's what the Concorde, people who flew on the Concorde did so for the same reasons. So it's, a lot of business people did anyway. Um, and it's unfortunate that the Concorde's no longer with us, but
Yeah, I always wanted to fly on that. It made me very sad when that went away, but maybe we'll get to fly into space instead. That would be even cooler.
yeah,
So there you go.
suborbital flood travel would be an amazing thing.
Exactly. So I want to leave just a little bit of room for questions, and I don't want to take too much
Sure,
more of your time. But here's a kind of a finishing question:
sure.
should humans even be allowed to explore space? Beyond like low Earth orbit and maybe going to the moon or something. Should we be allowed to explore space, or wouldn't it be better for robots to do it for us?
We
Um,
absolutely need to do it ourselves.
okay.
Most astronauts, any astronaut you talk to, I mean, what Curiosity and Spirit and Opportunity, all those have accomplished are wonderful. But in the
Right.
amount of time that it's taken Curiosity to go 20 kilometers, I could do it in one day. And look at how many years it's taken them to go that far. Oh, there's an interesting sample over there, 500
Right.
meters. It'll take me, 10 minutes to go over there. It takes Curiosity a year to get that far. It's just so difficult to effectively explore with rovers. I mean, you can accomplish a lot, but you
Right.
really can't. And they still haven't landed anything in the Valles Marineris. They still haven't had the guts to try to put anything
Right.
down there. So, the most amazing things on Mars have yet to be even seen except from orbit. The Valles
Right.
Marineris and Olympus Mons, plus all the other, there's so many colossal volcanoes on Mars, none of which have been seen by one rover. And
Right.
and where humans can go there. Let's get in a Martian rover and drive there.
Right.
And it'll take us a day and go back.
And
It's just it gives us so much more
from
flexibility.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. From a practical point of view, humans are much more flexible robots than robots are. If we think to ourselves, oh wow, that might be a really weird little thing over there, we can go and turn over the rock, even though that wasn't in our original programming for that particular mission. Whereas a robot's like, well, sorry, I don't have a claw, so I can't turn it over, so you're
Right.
stuck. Even though there might be something really amazing under that rock. Uh, but I also like, what you first said. I personally agree that we should definitely explore as humans. But I think it's just part of our nature.
Hmm.
Um, it's the same thing as going across the Atlantic or the Pacific or going to Alaska or the North Pole or the South Pole. It's like the things that we've done on Earth previously, or going to the Mariner Trench, down at the bottom of the
Yeah.
ocean. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And it's really about the only place left to do it. We've pretty much covered Earth at this point. So
Yeah. To a great degree. Yeah. We
yeah,
definitely need to start going out. So yeah, Mars. and really the rest of the solar system. Humans will be able to do it so much better than robots. Robots make
Right.
great advanced scouts, but they're not the comprehensive
Yes.
solution. They're just not.
Right. And I think, like you said, especially once we establish an actual colony, even on the moon, if not Mars, we've escaped a lot of the gravity well that we're stuck in, and so
Yes.
everything else becomes so much easier. I really
Yes.
wanted to talk about advanced propulsion systems, but I'll table that for another time because
Sure.
it's an
Yeah, I know
amazing
it's
topic.
too much to talk about.
Yeah, too much to talk about. But I have a few questions from viewers, so if you don't mind, I'll ask.
By all means.
Norman Robinson says, "Why can't SpaceX have a Mars base that is dome-shaped and fission-powered that creates its own magnetic shield by magnetizing the dome as protection from cosmic radiation?"
That
So,
has been discussed.
right,
The generating an artificial magnetic field has been talked about. However, there's a transparent silicate that you can make a dome out of as well that is
yeah,
highly radiation resistant, and then you make the structures inside the dome even more radiation resistant, and it involves a lot less effort to do that than trying to use nuclear power to generate an artificial magnetic field. But in principle,
gotcha,
it can be done. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think what you said, in my mind too, that the efficiency aspect, if you can do it passively, that's you don't have to worry about the power going out at just the wrong moment. You know, it's like, oh, solar
Right.
flare coming. Oh, crap.
Yeah.
You know, the fission power plant just went offline. So I thought he said fusion when I was reading it, and I was like, well, that's never going to happen because it'll be 20 years away
Oh, I don't know. My
forever. But
daughter's working on it right now, just so you know. So,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
your daughter sounds like a
she's in the
Smurry for
project
yeah, there you go.
this
Pretty
summer.
cool stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow, good for her. Well, anyway, so
I'm
hopefully
very excited for her.
she'll
That's
be
for
the one who
certain.
will lick the problem.
Yeah,
I
fingers
remember
crossed.
I remember
She's
when I
way
was in
smarter than me, that's for sure. She's a thousand
there
times
you go.
smarter than I am. So,
I'll
and
have to
she
have
knows
her
it
on.
too.
Yeah, there you go. Don't they always? Man, the kids always know that they're smarter than you. Okay, let's see. From Samak, I guess. Do you think ULA should still get money to maintain launch capabilities?
Absolutely.
Interesting. Okay.
I think the ULA, should get any kind of government funding that they've earned, and they have earned that funding. I mean, a lot of people,
Right.
SpaceX fans, don't like ULA. Fine, I get it. They're the child of Boeing and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
but ULA has responded to SpaceX's innovations with innovations of their own. They recognize that SpaceX is a threat, and they've come out with very innovative ways to compete against them. The Atlas V is a rocket that has had no mission failures. There was one occasion where the rocket
Right.
was lost, but still the payload got to the correct orbit. So the
Right.
mission was still a success. That's rare that you can say. SpaceX can't say that. Well, they can, I guess, with the Falcon Heavy, but it's only flown 3 times.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, so I mean, they have a lot of big successes in their history, a lot of experience, and at least as far as the military is concerned, their traditional partner. That's they. I think they're a great contractor to continue working with until they start stagnating, until they stop
Right.
innovating. But they are innovating, obviously. If they
Yeah.
weren't, they couldn't have done recently 2 military missions for just a little bit more than what SpaceX was charging for one. That was an impressive trick that Tory Bruno pulled off, indicating
Right.
that they can still compete. They're capable of
Yeah.
competing.
And uh, if correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to remember who's launching James Webb. Is that ULA?
Oh heck, no, no! It's
Oh,
the
okay.
it's the
Oh,
French.
it's the
It's
French
the
that are launching it.
Ariane. It's
Yeah,
the
it's the
Ariane
Ariane.
5. It's yeah. I don't get that. I guess the
Yeah.
ESA must be strongly involved. But one thing
Right.
is that at the time when James Webb was being worked on, that was the most powerful rocket on the planet.
Correct.
So they may have gone with that just so that they could get it out far enough. But yeah, that rocket does not have a perfect flight record. And I mean,
Right.
it's not horrible, but it's not
Right.
perfect. What a terrible tragedy that would be for that thing to
Oh my
blow
gosh.
up with
Oh
all of those
gosh.
years of work and all that money. My
Please.
God.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
for those who don't know, of course, the James Webb is not going to be where the Hubble is. It's not going to be doing a low Earth orbit. It's going to be at which L point? The Lagrange 3? The one out
Oh,
past the
now,
moon.
now,
I
now,
can
now
never
you would
keep
ask
track
me
of which
that.
one's which.
Yeah.
I don't remember the numbers. It's one of the Lagrange points past the moon, but it's about 1.5 million kilometers, right? I think it's somewhere around
It's a
that
long
range. From
ways out.
It's a
It's going to
long
be
ways.
virtually impossible to maintain.
Right.
Not necessarily impossible, but very difficult to
Right.
maintain.
Maybe
It
we'll
goes
have a
out
moon
there,
base
and
out there, so we'll be able to get there easier.
yeah.
So there you go.
So yeah, you need to, you need to do it right the first time, but it's going to be completely away from any radio interference from the Earth or any of what our technology produces, and it will uncover an incredible amount of information if the mission is successful.
Oh gosh, I have been waiting for that for years because
Yeah.
it's just technologically, it's just such a fascinating. I don't know. I think like you, I'm very much into the science aspects, which are not commercially viable whatsoever. But I love NASA for making the
Yeah.
science happen, even with their very small budget. And everyone thinks they have a huge budget, but they really don't. They have a
No.
very very small budget. One more question from Norman here. Is there a need to quickly progress to alternative propulsion options for higher velocities with solutions such as DFD or direct to fusion drives? So actually, there we go. We'll get to talk about alternative
Yeah.
propulsion systems anyway.
Yeah, I believe so. There's a lot of different solutions, but what NASA is working the most aggressively towards is nuclear thermal propulsion. I've got some videos about that, which
Right.
would cut the journey to Mars in half, which is a huge advantage. The radiation in space is far worse than the radiation on Mars. That's a far more serious consideration, and there's serious questions as to whether or not you can even make an effective radiation bunker in space if there were
Right.
a solar storm. So the faster you can get to Mars, the better. So yeah, I mean, if we're talking about establishing a base there and establishing a regular presence and continual relations between ourselves and Mars, you need to do it faster. So yeah, I'm all for what NASA's trying to do, and I wish they were spending more money on it because I think that they could
Right.
accomplish some amazing stuff with that.
Right. I'll throw in that I think direct to fusion, anything with fusion in it is a long ways away.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying is the thermal, anything with a fission based engine or something
Yeah.
along those lines is a much better option. So
Well,
yeah.
I mean, more realistic. I mean, you never know. I mean, a breakthrough could
Right.
happen tomorrow with fusion. There's a
That's
lot
true.
of people working very hard on it right now.
Right.
Like say, one of them
I
is
think
my daughter this summer, which is
exactly.
amazing. I've got nuclear physicist friends on Discord who are completely
Right.
envious of her. So
Wow.
yeah.
What's the internship with? What
She's at Clemson studying nuclear
right.
engineering.
But is it with Clemson itself or is it with some
Yeah,
other
yeah.
group?
But
Oh, okay,
yeah,
cool.
well, as part of the overall fusion project. Oh my God, what
Right.
is wrong with me? I'm getting old. I'm getting old. The big one out of France that they've been working
Oh,
on forever. Um,
Eater, is that right? Is it
what's
ITR?
wrong with me? My mind
Um,
goes. It really does. So anyway, the big one
yeah,
that they've been working on forever. She's involved in that now. So it's exciting stuff. Beyond exciting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think, well, I think we can leave it with that because that's a very optimistic and very cool thing.
Mhm.
And I mean, how awesome would that be to be able to actually see fusion-based ships going? We'd get to the expanse. We'd have the world
Yeah.
of the expanse there.
One
So,
day it will happen. One day we'll
right.
get it, and one day fusion-powered vessels will apply the
Yeah.
solar system. I am confident of that. I've seen a lot of designs showing
Right.
how fusion drives could work. So,
And in some ways, it's actually easier than doing it on Earth because you don't have to contain it nearly as much.
right,
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's very cool. Well, thank you so much. Oh,
Well,
good. I
thank
kept it
you.
just about an hour. So again, I apologize about my video going out. I'm really gonna have to. I've just ordered a USB device to hopefully do better, but I didn't get in time. But anyway, thank you so much for talking today. Again, the Angry Astronaut. For anybody who doesn't know, his channel link is in the description, and of course you can just search for the Angry Astronaut on YouTube. Definitely go there, subscribe. You're gonna get to 100,000 in no time. I mean, you've been climbing like crazy. It's over
Certainly
60
hope
already.
so.
Yeah.
I'm astonished I'm here at this point, and I am
Right.
very honored to be on today. can't imagine why anybody would be interviewing me. So thank you so much. Thank you so
No,
much.
you're amazing. So, again, absolutely an honor to do the interview, and we'll end this mutual admiration society.
Sounds
Anyway,
great.
yeah. So, so definitely check out his channel, and definitely check out all the links in my channel. You know what to do. And in the meantime, thank you so much, and I'll end the live stream. Hopefully. I always forget to end it from the YouTube end of things, so I'm going to hopefully remember to do that this time. So I'm not just wandering around the house with the live stream still going. Anyway, thank you so much. Have
Thank
a
you.
lovely afternoon, and I will talk to you later. All
Take
righty.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting off of here.